little children, I am writing these things to you so that you may not sin. Yeah. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate with the Father, Yahusha Messiah, the righteous one. He is the propitiation for our sins, not for ours only, but for the sins of the whole world. And by this we know that we have come to know him, if we keep his commandments, if we keep his commandments. Who says, I have come to know him, and does not keep his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, truly in him, the love of God is perfected. By this we know that we are in him. And by this we know that we have come to know him, if we keep his commandments, if we keep his commandments. The one who says he resides in him ought to walk just as that one walked, ought to walk just as that one walked. Like him, talk like him, love like him, live like him. We have an advocate with the Father, Yahusha Messiah, the righteous one. And by this we know that we have come to know.
Hello and welcome, Kingdom in Context. I'm Sean, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Lindsay.
Easy for you to say.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat Shalom, babe.
Thank you for everyone for being here, and hopefully everyone's having a good Sabbath. If you're observing, if you're not, if you're a Christian and you're not observing Sabbath, it's a blessing that you're missing out on. It's part of our discipleship, but it's also what the behavior Christ demonstrated for us to observe as well, and it's going to be required of all nations when the kingdom comes. So it's a great time to practice now. It's really, truly one of the easiest commandments to practice.
That's right.
You just don't work that day. Just relax. So check it out if you haven't already been made aware of that part of our discipleship. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of those awesome new tunes from Yatunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to go sub. I'm sorry. I'm going to go sub, Dahlia. I keep telling myself I need to.
Yeah, go check out Yatunes. And I guess if Wes or Dahlia is here, they can drop the link.
Sub.
I think you can find the music on as well on Westplay's music channel, but I think she has more individual tracks on her channel on Yatunes. So you're welcome to go check that out. It's a great new channel. Great for you to have on around the house, be listening to while you're praising God, doing your daily life. And so, yeah, it's a blessing. Do we want to bring up the fundraiser for Carrie Estridge?
Yeah, I suppose we could probably, is it in the chat or is it in the description? Yeah, so if you've watched the last couple streams, there's a sister in the faith who recently lost her husband. So there is a fundraiser down in the description for her. Also, I think you should give a little update on your brother.
Yeah, my brother, I got a chance to see him this past weekend, and he is a walking miracle, guys. It's hard to talk about without getting choked up, because he had a stroke last year. It was severe. He almost died. They thought he was going to die. He didn't die. Got out of the hospital, and it's been a struggle with insurance and other things for rehab and that kind of stuff. And he, up until I guess the last few months, I mean, he was not himself, if I could put it like that, right? His like the brother that I knew was gone, and it was like a different version of him. So that was what was really tough, because you couldn't really have full-on conversations, and his thought process, it just wasn't him. You know, it was like he reverted back to a preteen in his mind. His voice even changed, which is weird how your voice changes.
Yeah, the brain is a very interesting organ.
Yeah, and it was like I lost my brother, but still I'm interacting with someone that looks like my brother.
Yeah.
Good news, guys. I got to spend some time with him just briefly this past weekend, and some people from his local church who are actual neurotherapists have been volunteering free therapy to come over his house and help him. And it's just provided miraculous results. Yeah. I mean, he is actually able to move some of his body parts now that he wasn't able to move. He's still not to full functionality, but the point is, he's not just a potato. He's not just sitting there.
A lot of progress.
He's so mentally acute again, like he used to be. He's making jokes. He was talking with the family. He was remembering details from the history, from our childhood and from our history that my father was even forgetting. Right. So like, it's very encouraging. He was laughing appropriately at the right times at jokes. Like, he was following conversation, trying to add to the conversation, being a part of it. It was like he was his old self again.
Yeah. Wasn't he even able to do some?
He had his right hand. He's still working with therapy, but his left hand, he was a guitar player, a piano player, a drummer. He was a musical phenom. And as he's just sitting there talking, his left hand is like making piano chords on the arm of the chair, just instinctively. And so his dexterity is returning. And apparently he's been trying to play the guitar and remember the fretting on the guitar, because he was an incredible guitar player, guys. Just, you have no idea.
Yeah, didn't he like get a scholarship?
Yeah, most of his college was paid for.
He went to school for his musical talent.
Yeah. So apparently he's been trying to practice the guitar again, with his son, his 13-year-old son, strumming the actual chords with the right hand, but then he's fretting with the left hand to kind of keep his brain active and bring back that memory. So it's just it's a huge answer prayer in progress that we're seeing, which is a walking miracle, because even the neurotherapists, I got to meet them as well, and they sweet couple, and they said, like, he is a statistical anomaly. No one hardly ever, from the state that he was in, people usually just die. So no one hardly ever comes back to functionality, engaging again, being mentally aware, having incredible recall in their memory. My brother, by the way, my brother was a genius before this happened. So it's just a huge, for anyone that was praying, thank you so much. Please keep praying for him. That Father brings him back to full mobility so that he can fully walk again with his right leg. And so, we appreciate your prayers.
Yeah, and just pray for the beautiful, wonderful people from his church that have been giving him this free therapy, because he got taken off of the insurance that he had. So he wasn't able to get this therapy that could be, literally healing his brain. And so when these people at his church found out, like, that's why they're there. It's not just, because they have nothing better to do on a Thursday. Like, they found out he was really in need, and they're out there being the hands and feet and meeting that need. So it was just bless them and pray for them as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Very encouraging. Okay.
All right.
We're going to pick back up this week with 1 Samuel chapter 21 through 25.
Samuel.
Yeah. We've been reading 5 chapters at a time through Samuel, and just trying to get ourselves into some of these books in the middle of the Bible, right? So people can be aware of the implications there, the history, some of the timelines, some, because these are important details that are adding to God's instructions and how they're trying to be observed and practiced or poorly practiced
Yeah.
in the history as Israel became a nation and is now unfolding with all its drama, and as the world turns in Israel.
As Israel turns.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Jacob, all my children.
Okay, so let's check out 1 Samuel chapter 21.
Yeah, it makes me think about how the tradition in Judaism is to do the Torah portions all year, every year, and you just cycle through the Torah portions every year. And while I believe that that can be really good practice for a few years to really just get well rooted in those first 5 books, I mean, just imagine how much more all of us would really know about our Bibles if we cycle through the whole thing, and especially these books in the middle. Sean and I are often talk about, even ourselves, we don't know them as well as we would like to. We just finished Jeremiah with our personal studies, and we're going to move into Daniel because that's one I don't know well enough. So these are some of the forgotten books, in my opinion, that people tend to neglect.
All right, let's check it out, guys. Here in chapter 21 of 1 Samuel, David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And when Ahimelech met David, he trembled and asked him, "Why are you alone? Why is no one with you?" So it's like one of those role playing games where you get to the innkeeper and he's like, "Oh, why are you alone? Why is there no one with you, strange traveler?" "No, the king has given me a mission," David replied. "He told me no one is to know about the mission on which I'm sending you, and I have directed my young men to meet me at a certain place. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever can be found." "There is no common bread on hand," the priest replied, "but there is some consecrated bread, provided that the young men have kept themselves from women." David answered, "Women have indeed been kept from us, as is usual when I set out. And the bodies of the young men are holy even on common commissions. How much more so today?" So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, since there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which had been removed from before the Lord and replaced with hot bread on the day it was taken away. So now one of Saul's servants was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief shepherd for Saul.
So I have so often heard that used as an example of David like breaking some law.
This is in Mark chapter 2, where Jesus mentions this in response to the Pharisees.
Because the priest is telling him he can eat it as long as he's clean.
Okay, what about it?
So where's the commandment that says nobody else can eat that showbread?
I can't remember right now. I believe it's in Leviticus or Numbers, but it's set apart for the priests.
So it's only for, but apparently the priest can say.
Now remember, you
have some.
So remember, there's a difference between this is why I gave us the details. Okay, the details is the bread has already been replaced. So there's hot bread that's put on the table of showbread on the actual table inside the holy place that when they're ministering, and they eat of that. But apparently, if it's not all eaten, they've taken it away and replaced it with hot bread for the next day. Right. So that means you got leftover bread. And so this is what he's given David. Okay. And of course, yes, he's saying, because this was set apart for Yahweh, you need to be clean before you eat this. So
it just makes me think about the smell of fresh baked bread and how much Yahweh must love that smell as well, because he clearly loves the smell of the burnt offerings, the grilling of the meat. But man, one of my favorite smells in the whole world is when I'm making fresh bread. I think that probably goes for a lot of people. So it's just an aspect of our Father, I feel like, is part of our being that we don't even necessarily recognize, like, comes from him.
Yeah, so this is actually the passage that Christ mentions in Mark 2 when responding to them saying that he broke the Sabbath by taking the grains of head and eating them with his disciples. And he's like, "No, don't you remember David ate the bread that was consecrated when they were hungry with his men who were on a mission?" Yeah. So this is what he's talking about, or this moment here. Basically saying, even though that was set apart with its own rules, specifically for the priests, that was set aside for the case of an emergency. Yeah. Okay.
David was blameless for that.
Right. The priests were blameless. Nobody wasn't, It's Matthew 12, which Christ responds with the example of the priest ministering in the temple and are held guiltless on the Sabbath. Okay. So this is a different application of God's law being broken by a matter of importance, but still people not being held guilty. Right? So typically the bread was set apart for the priesthood, but David and his men, for all those people out there that want to claim David was a Melchizedek priest, which he was not, he was a king, and his men also ate this, right? So he's not traveling as a Melchizedek with a bunch of other Melchizedek priests. No, they're warriors traveling under, because Saul's not even been deposed yet. He's still just a general in Saul's army, right? So this is not about a Melchizedek subthread. This is simply, there's a matter of necessity. They're hungry. This is why he goes to the temple to say, do you have any food?
Yeah.
Right? Remember, what was the temple? The temple's a depository for extra resources, food, wine, crops, all the things brought forward. Now, in this case, they took the grain that was brought forward, given through the grain offerings. They took the grain or the first fruit offerings, and then they make some bread out of it for the holy place. But since they didn't eat all of it, they had leftovers. That's what they can give to David and his men. It's just as good as any other bread. It's awesome. So he goes on to say in verse 8, then David asked Ahimelech, is there not a spear or sword on hand here? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's mission was urgent. The priest replied, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, it's here. It's wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you want it, you may take it, for there is no other but this one here. So I'm pretty sure that's a massive sword.
Yeah.
Which you, like, three of you gonna hold it and wield it? Like,
I guess David was able to hold it and cut his head off with it.
I guess so, huh?
Yeah.
Well, maybe Goliath had a normal sized sword that he used like as a rapier or a smaller type of katana.
Like a dagger for him.
Yeah, well, instead of being like a long sword, right? He like, men have different sized swords. Maybe he didn't want a big sword. I don't know. But for David, it would have been normal size. Because you're right, David, even as a boy, was able to wield it and cut his head off with it. So David goes on to say, there is none like it, give it to me. That day, David fled from Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. But the servants of Achish said to him, is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing about him in the dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, David his tens of thousands? Now David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them and feigned madness in their hands. He scratched on the doors of the gate and let his saliva run down his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, look, you can see that the man's insane. Why have you brought him to me? Am I in need of madmen, that you have brought this man to rave in my presence? Must this man come into my house? Okay.
So I guess faking a seizure is not a new thing.
Interesting. So this is the part where David intentionally goes to this guy's house.
Yeah, I'm confused by that.
But when he gets there, he doesn't like, I guess, the tone in which this king is recognizing who he is.
Yeah, did he not expect him to recognize?
And thought suddenly he was going to be I'm a little confused because I'm pretty sure it's the Philistine king. So
yeah,
let us know in the comments, guys, if you guys have done any deep dive history into something behind this, because this has been something I've heard people question over the years, which is like, what's going on here? Like, there's some missing information, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is he going to the Philistine king? Because he's fleeing from Saul.
Yeah.
The Philistine king, how does he know the prophecy about David becoming king? Because it hasn't happened.
Right. He hasn't been,
right?
He wasn't named king yet. That cat hasn't been let out of the bag, has it? I can't it's been 2 weeks since we read the last 5 chapters, so I can't quite remember, but I didn't think so.
Well, the concept that Saul's already been told that his kingdom will be taken from him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It would have been in the last 3 or 4 chapters after Goliath.
Yeah.
So it's been a long week, guys. Long week.
Does anyone remember?
It's been a long 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't remember him being anointed in the presence of all of Israel, or nothing like Samuel anointing Saul for kingship. I don't think that's happened yet. I think it was just privately done.
Yeah, and Saul is still alive, chasing him,
right,
trying to kill him all the time. So.
Right. So why does Achish know that why is he calling him the king of the land?
Yeah.
Let's do a little deep dive here. Let's just see if there's a difference in. Interesting. Huh. I don't know. Anyone in the live chat have any ideas about how Achish is calling David king of the land at this point? Interesting. I wonder if this is supposed to be just a word for a ruler, because he would be a ruler as a general to King Saul. See the Melech. Interesting.
Interesting. Are there any parallel verses?
Melech. All right. Well, let's call him the king of the land. That's interesting.
Well, let's go all the way down and see if
Yeah.
there's any cross references.
It's actually calling Akshish Abimelech
Interesting.
here as a parallel.
Hmm.
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 Yeah, I don't remember. As far as like if there was anything here that explains this. See if anyone in the live chat has any ideas.
That could be.
Just because he was the victor in the battle.
Could be it.
Maybe.
Could be that. I mean,
Maybe that was the mindset
as
of
far
the
as the
Philistines.
Philistines were concerned, he might
Yeah.
as well have been the king of the land. I mean, guess ruler of the land if he's the one who's killed more Philistines.
Yeah.
So that could be it.
Could be. All right, so he goes on to say, then David asked Ahimelech, I wonder if this is just like a weird spelling issue here between Psalm 34 column and Abimelech versus Ahimelech.
Yeah, interesting.
Huh.
We just read all this. We're on to the next chapter, right?
Yeah. I'm just looking at it again, just trying to figure out if there's something I'm missing here. So chapter 22. So David left Gath, took refuge in the cave of Adullam, where his brothers and the rest of his father's household heard about it. They went down to him there. And all who were distressed or indebted or discontented rallied around him, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. From there, David went to Mitzvah of Moab, where he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and mother stay with you until I learn what God will do for me. So he left them in the cave in the care of king of Moab. They stayed with him the whole time David was in the stronghold.
His mother.
I'm sure his father remarried. Jesse could have remarried.
Yeah.
So he left him in the care of the king of Moab. They stayed with him the whole time David was in the stronghold. I mean, he had brothers, so maybe Jesse had more than one wife.
That's a possibility, yeah.
So he left him in the care of King Moab. He stayed with him the whole time David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold. Depart and go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Heret. Okay.
I wonder if Gad had a book.
Yeah. Supposedly it's one of the lost books that is mentioned, but not, Soon Saul learned that David and his men had been discovered. And at that time, Saul was sitting under the tamarisk tree on the hill at Gibeah with his spear in his hand and all his servants standing around him. Then Saul said to his servants, listen, men of Benjamin, is the son of Jesse giving all of you fields and vineyards and making you commanders of thousands or hundreds? Is that why all of you conspired against me? Not one of you told me that my own son had made a covenant with the son of Jesse. Not one of you has shown concern for me and revealed to me that my son stirred up my own servant to lie and wait against me, as is the case today. But Doeg the Edomite, who had stationed himself with Saul's servants, answered, I saw the son of Jesse come to Abimelech, the son of Ahitub, at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions. He also gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. Then the king sent messengers to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and his father's whole family, who were priests at Nob. All of them came to the king. Listen now, son of Ahitub, said Saul. Here I am, my lord, he replied. And Saul asked him, why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me? You gave him bread and a sword, and inquired of God for him so that he could raise up against me to lie in wait, as he is doing today. Ahimelech answered the king, who among all your servants is as faithful as David, the king's son-in-law, the captain of your bodyguard, and honored in your house? Was that day the first time I inquired of God for him? Far be it from me. Let not the king accuse your servant or any of my father's household, for your servant knew nothing of this whole affair, not in part or in whole. But the king replied, you will surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. Then the king ordered the guards at his side, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because they too sided with David, for they knew he was fleeing, but they did not tell me. The king's servants would not lift a hand to strike the priests of the Lord. So the king ordered Doeg, you turn and strike down the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priest himself. On that day he killed 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He also put to the sword Nob, the city of the priests, with its men and women, children and infants, oxen, donkeys, and sheep. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, escaped. His name was Abiathar, and he fled to David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priest of the Lord. Guess you should probably just pause for a minute and just kind of reflect on what we just read here. So we're here reading that Doeg turned and killed 80 men plus an entire town.
Yeah.
Because the men that were with Saul refused to raise their swords.
Yeah.
How does this happen? Like, are these people just lining up, putting their necks out to be slayed? Like, what is going on here?
Doeg clearly has to have like a clan of fighting men with him to also go in and then kill a whole city afterwards. Like, it's got to be more.
Just the 80 men by himself. Like, what's not one of you said, "Hey, wait a minute, let's gang up on him. Let's ambush the guy," as he's,
because the priests were technically warriors themselves, weren't they?
Supposed to be ready to fight. There's, again, I think we mentioned this in the last two streams where we were covering Samuel. We just feel like there's some information that could have been, some extra information that could have been shared that's just not in here.
Yeah.
Right? That we're just like, I wish I had some extra details.
Yeah, like why is David talking to a Philistine king? Like what?
Yeah, and if he, there's just some details here, man. Thank you, Miss Marcia. We're praying for you as well for your continued healing. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you, and thank you so much for generosity, gifting memberships for folks. Now, guys, I'm not sure what level of membership this is, but check out our members only content. Yeah, someone said maybe Doeg was stealth. I mean, 80 men. That's
a lot.
That takes some time.
Yeah.
That takes some time. Especially if they don't know you're coming and you're expecting them to put up a fight against you, and you need to be stealthy and move around and not be seen and hide bodies, and like bodies will pile up quick.
Yeah.
Like this, people notice. Blood runs out from underneath doorways.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of details here I have questions about, right? As far as like what's going on. And then of course he's got to have people with him. He's got to have some kind of some sort of marauding force it's like the brute squad that Saul's carrying around with him. They're going to do the dirty work that the actual true sons of Israel are not going to do. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, escaped. His name was Abiathar. He went, told David what happened. Verse 22, then David said to Abiathar, he knew that Doeg the Edomite was there that day, and that he was sure to tell Saul, I myself am responsible for the lives of everyone in your father's house. Stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks your life is seeking mine as well. You'll be safe with me. Okay. Interesting.
Doeg, what's the deal, bro? Who's this Doeg guy?
Interesting. He's an Edomite. Don't let the BHIs know. They'll be all over it.
Oh yeah, I guess I could explain it.
In their minds.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 23, it says, now it was reported to David, look, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and looting the threshing floors. So David inquired of the Lord, should I go and attack these Philistines? And the Lord said to David, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said to him, look, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more if we go to Keilah, I hope I'm saying that right, Keilah, against the armies of the Philistines? Once again, David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered him, go at once to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into your hand. Then David and his men went to Keilah, fought against the Philistines, and carried off their livestock, striking them with a mighty blow. So David saved the people of Keilah. Now Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, had brought the ephod with him when he fled to David at Keilah. So this little added, because he's inquiring of the Lord.
Yeah.
And it just lets you know, oh, by the way, he had an ephod. He has his own personal priest and ephod now, going with his
oh yeah, because Abiathar would be a priest.
Yeah, he's a priest.
Okay.
So this is like, Think about what's happening here, though. The Philistines are raiding an innocent town.
Mm-hmm.
They need help, but instead of the king and his army going out to the battle, he's too busy chasing David.
Yeah.
And David, while being chased by the king, is like, you know what? We've got valiant stuff to go take care of. Let's go take care of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. The priorities are all flipped on their heads, you know, in the days of Saul.
Yes, and Saul isn't just out trying to kill David. Like, he's having a whole bunch of priests killed.
Yeah, this is wild. Yeah, I mean, at this point, Saul is acting like he may as well be a Philistine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
the throne of Israel has been taken over by the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a worm tongue.
Right.
When Saul was told that David had gone to Keilah, he said, God has delivered him into my hand, for he's trapped himself by entering a town with gates and bars. Why do you think he's there, Saul?
Wow.
Why aren't you there doing what he's doing? Saul summoned all his troops to go to war at Keilah and besiege David and his men. When David learned that Saul was plotting evil against him, he said to Abiathar, that priest, bring the ephod. And David said, O Lord, God of Israel, your servant has heard that Saul intends to come to Keilah and destroy the city on my account. Will the citizens of Keilah surrender me into his hand? Will Saul come down, as your servant has heard, O Lord, God of Israel? Please tell your servant. He will, said the Lord. So David asked, will the citizens of Keilah surrender me and my men into the hands of Saul? They will, said the Lord. So the people he just saved are going to give him up to Saul when Saul arrives.
Man, the ancient world was no joke, man.
Talk about feeling like, you know, just not feeling valued. David is just like,
no good deed.
No good deed, man. Then David and his men, about 600 strong, set out and departed from Keilah, moving from place to place. And when Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he declined to go forth. And David stayed in the wilderness of strongholds in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. Day after day, Saul searched for him, but God would not deliver David into his hand. While David was in Horesh in the wilderness of Ziph, he saw that Saul had come out to take his life. And Saul's son Jonathan came to David in Horesh and strengthened his hand in God, saying, do not be afraid, for my father Saul will never lay a hand on you, and you will be king over Israel. I will be your second in command. Even my father Saul knows this is true. It's sad because we know what happens to Jonathan. Yeah. But that was, what would that have been like?
I know.
What I mean? What would that have been like?
You know, I wonder if, that friendship maybe could have helped David a little bit, stay accountable to him, to his own desire to follow God's laws. Jonathan could have been a very good influence on him.
Right.
Seemed to have a really good heart.
So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David remained in Horesh while Jonathan went home. Then the Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah and said, Is not David hiding among us in the strongholds at Horesh, or on the hill of Hakilah, south of Jeshimon? Now, O king, come down whenever your soul desires, and we will be responsible for delivering him into your hand. May you be blessed by the Lord, replied Saul, for you have compassion on me. Please go and prepare further. Investigate and watch carefully where he goes and who has seen him there, for I am told that he's extremely cunning. Observe and find all the places where he hides. Then come back to me with certainty, and I will go with you. If he is in the land, I will search him out amongst all the clans of Judah. So they set out and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah south of Jeshimon. And Saul and his men went to seek him. When David was told about it, he went down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard of this, he pursued David there. Saul was proceeding along one side of the mountain, and David and his men along the other side. Even though David was hurrying to get away, Saul and his men were closing in on David and his men to capture them. Then a messenger came to Saul, saying, Come quickly, for the Philistines have raided the land. So Saul broke off his pursuit of David and went to meet the Philistines. That is why that place is called Selah Hamalekut. Selah Hamalekut. You got to sing it. That's how it works. Selah Hamalekut. Yeah.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum. All right. And David went up from there and lived in the strongholds of En-Gedi. Okay. So now he's in more strongholds, but David's like, but Saul's not going to, I don't know. Just
Also, just look at the irresponsibility of leadership here, where Saul is so busy going after David that his towns and his under his rule are just being marauded by Philistines willy-nilly, you know?
Yep. A new day, a new invasion in some town, and Saul's out just chasing down chasing down ghosts, you know, just falsely accusing and trying to falsely murder people. Like, it's just unbelievable.
I'm gonna grab something from my office real quick.
All right. All right.
This Wyoming air. You ever move to the mountains, guys, buy lots of chapstick.
All right. So Saul had returned from pursuing the Philistines. He was told, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. So Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to look for David and his men in the region and the rocks of the wild goats. Soon Saul came to the sheepfolds along the roads where there was a cave, and he went in to relieve himself. And David and his men were hiding in the recesses of the cave. So David's men said to him, this is the day about which the Lord said to you, behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hands so that you may do with him as you wish. Then David crept up and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Afterward, David's conscience was stricken because he had cut off the corner of Saul's robe. So he said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed. May I never lift my hand against him, since he is the Lord's anointed. And with these words, David restrained his men, and he did not let them rise up against Saul. And then Saul left the cave and went on his way. So verse 8, after that, David got up, went out of the cave, and called out to Saul, my lord the king. When Saul looked behind him, David bowed face down in reverence and said to Saul, why do you listen to the words of men who say, look, David intends to harm you? Behold, this day you have seen with your own eyes that the Lord delivered you into my hand in the cave. I was told to kill you, but I spared you, and I said, I will not lift my hand against my Lord, since he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, look at the corner of your robe in my hand, for I cut it off, but I did not kill you. Know and see that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands. I have not sinned against you, even though you're hunting me down to take my life. Just a little side note here for everyone listening. The word father is used in the Old Testament for a ruler. We see this of Joseph in Genesis. We've seen it here in 1 Samuel for Saul, who's the king, but he's also called a father. We see it in Isaiah chapter 22, speaking about Hilkiah, who's made king, called a father to the people of the land. We also see it about Job, who was the king of his land, being called a father to his people. So in Isaiah 9:6, when Christ is being prophesied and it calls him everlasting father
in the Masoretic,
it's not speaking about him being the Almighty or some Trinitarian language. It's literally because he's going to be king over the Gentiles, over the nations, and over the church forever. He's an everlasting ruler.
Right. He even calls Saul my Lord.
Yeah.
So right. Lord doesn't always mean Father in heaven. People are saying the scripture's not on the screen.
It's not. Sorry, guys. So, yes, that's the idea. Is the word father is commonly used in the Old Testament for a ruler. Okay. Verse 12, may the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord take vengeance on you. But my hand will never be against you. As the old proverb says, wickedness proceeds from the wicked, but my hand will never be against you. Against whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog? A flea? May the Lord be our judge and decide between you and me. May he take notice and plead my case and deliver me from your hand. By the way, since I mentioned a proverb, you remember a couple weeks back we were reading one of the proverbs says, oh, is not Saul amongst one of the prophets now?
Yeah.
And we were like, man, that's a weird, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is either someone in the comments or something I read, I can't remember. Someone said it means your plans have been interrupted. It was a proverb that people would say when their plans get interrupted.
Huh. Because
his plans, Saul's plans, were interrupted when the Holy Spirit came on him and he started falling down and prophesying.
Yeah.
And that was what people think that idiom means, or that little proverb means.
Interesting.
And I guess it would kind of make sense, you know, kind of a very practical way of being like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of like saying, "C'est la vie," like when our plans get interrupted, we're like, "Ah, c'est la vie."
Yeah.
You know, but Is Saul among the prophets? Now we're going to be saying that.
What are you gonna do?
When David had finished saying these things, Saul called back, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" Then Saul wept aloud and said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with good, though I have rewarded you with evil. You have declared this day how you have treated me well, for when the Lord delivered me into your hand, you did not kill me. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him go away unharmed? May the Lord reward you with good for what you've done for me this day." Yeah, if you're not walking in the spirit of the Lord, then yes, you attack your enemies. But if you're loving your enemies, if you're abiding in the commandments and the heart of the spirit of the law, then yeah, you're going to do what David did, right? It's so funny. Without going into great detail, many years ago, almost 2 decades now, there was a guy that viewed me as there was a guy in my life that was an antagonist and an enemy, right? And I saw him out in public somewhere, and it became known later that I was basically standing next to him in public, and he didn't know I was there because he didn't see me, he didn't recognize me. And then he told the mutual acquaintance later, or he was like, "Oh man, Sean had the drop on me. He could have got me." And I'm just like, what do these people think? Like, this is the mindset of the wicked. Yeah. Right. They just think that you're going to do what they would have done. Right. Yes. Which is to be out looking for, like, oh, I see my enemy, I'm going to go punch him. Yeah. You know, it's like, this is the mindset of the wicked. Right. They don't understand the righteous. You're like, why didn't you take the opportunity? Yeah. You know, this is how far gone Saul is. Right. He's thinking like a full on reprobate. Verse 20. Now I know for sure that you will be king, and the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hands. So now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants or wipe out my name from my father's house. So David gave his oath to Saul. Then Saul returned home, but David and his man went up to the stronghold. It's wild.
Interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So this is the famous moment. I just want to know what kind of knife you have that can cut a piece of someone's clothing without someone noticing. Because that's a sharp knife. Yeah. Right? That's a circumcision knife. Yeah. That's a sharp one.
Yeah, that's some kind of fancy flint.
Any thoughts on this chapter before we move to 25?
I back when I listened to a more Hebrew roots type teacher way back in my early days, he always used this as an example of following leadership, even if they're doing bad things, and like respecting leaders, even if they're trying to kill you. So it's kind of a aspect of the story I've always thought about, that, you know, here David is like, and he's still showing respect to this guy and calling him my Lord and saying he's the Lord's anointed, and I'm not going to raise my hand against him. And, so just something that teacher always hammered home, that's what stands out to me in this passage. So
the mindset of Saul is very, hopefully it's relatable to people you may know in your life, right? They know the language of church, but their heart is definitely not circumcised to God.
Yeah.
Even to the point of when they're humbled in a moment, he says to David, I know for sure that you will be king over the kingdom of Israel. Yeah. Will be established in your hands.
Yeah.
So like, he's acknowledging this dude is more righteous than I. Mm-hmm. He will be king. He's demonstrating his kingly behavior, the stuff that he's lacking in that moment. Right. And it's just an interesting, it's like he's even in his madness of trying to pursue with this murderous intent for David. He has this moment of, it's like, it reminds me of, you know, Genesis 38 with Judah and Tamar.
Yeah.
Where after 3 months, she discovers pregnant, bring her out. She brings out his items to reveal it was him that impregnated her. And he's like, you're more righteous than I. It's like, it's an interesting mindset, right? Because it's relatable to the point where Saul is going to have the kingdom taken from him for sure. That's not going to change. But Saul could have still just repented this whole time. He could have circumcised his heart back to Yahweh, back to the commandments, and finished his kingship and had a peaceful transfer. Right. It didn't have to be so much drama. in the LBC, ancient Israel BC. So Samuel 25 starts out with the death of Samuel. When Samuel died, all Israel gathered to mourn for him. They buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David set out and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was a very wealthy man with 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband, the Calebite, was harsh and evil in his dealings.
So I'm assuming that means he was an abusive husband.
Possibly.
Because it's directly in the context of her as his wife.
Yeah.
Evil in his dealings is one thing, but I mean, it's relating this to as her husband. So I don't know. Just to me, I think a lot of people think that the Bible doesn't speak on abusive husbands and that there's just some kind of carte blanche pass for, domestic abuse in the Bible. But to me, that sounds like they're calling this guy out for being a crappy husband.
Yeah. Huh. It's all the same translated things. Hard and evil work, and his is his dog. Interesting.
And he is as his dog.
Interesting. It's all the same, mostly the same translation of those two words. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So David sent 10 young men, instructing them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel, greet him in my name, and say to him, 'Long life to you, and peace to you, and to your house, and to all that belongs to you. Now I hear that it is time for shearing. When your shepherds were with us, we did not harass them, and nothing of theirs was missing the whole time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. So let my young men find favor with you, for we have come on the day of a feast. Please give whatever you can spare to your servants and to your son David.' And when David's young men arrived, they relayed all these words to Nabal on behalf of David. Then they waited. But Nabal asked them, 'Who's David? Who is the son of Jesse? Many servants these days are breaking away from their masters. Why should I take my bread and water and meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give them to men whose origin I do not know?' So David's men turned around and went back, and then they relayed to him all these words. David said to his men, 'Strap on your swords, mount up. Regulators, mount up.'" And about 400 men followed David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Meanwhile, he asked peacefully. He was like, "Bro, you got anything to spare? It's a feast day."
Yeah.
Right? You just sheared all your animals. You've got the supplies. What are you supposed to do with your excess during the feast? You give it to the poor, right? Those in need. He fits the qualifier. So this man's disobeying Torah. So mount up. It's a wild world, guys. It's a wild world. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's young men informed Nabal's wife, Abigail, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he screamed at them. Yet these men were very good to us. When we were in the field, we were not harassed, and nothing of ours went missing the whole time we lived among them. They were a wall around us, both day and night, the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now carefully consider what you must do, because disaster looms over our master and all of his household, for he is such a scoundrel that nobody can speak to him." Then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 butchered sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs. She loaded them on donkeys and sent her young men, "Go ahead of me, I'll be right behind you." But she didn't tell her husband Nabal. As Abigail came riding her donkey into the mountain ravine, she saw David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had just said, "In vain I have protected all that belonged to this man in the wilderness. Nothing that belongs to him has gone missing, yet he's paid me back evil for good. May God punish David, and ever so severely, if I let one male belonging to Nabal survive until morning." So David's justification seems to be, I protected this man's possessions for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And we didn't steal from him, and we protected him for free.
Yeah.
So he did a job for this man for free while they were on the run at some previous point, and now this guy's acting like I don't know him.
Yeah.
Who's David? I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
So there's a little more history here than just, "I'm in need, please abide in Torah and give me some extra food."
Yeah.
They're actually looking for back pay.
Yeah.
Right? So that's interesting. Just FYI, guys, he's not taking these people to the local court. This is a totally different world back then, right? It reminds me of kind of like the quote unquote Wild West of the United States. People being caught stealing, they hung them.
Yeah.
There was no, they didn't even take a biblical route of like, oh, we're gonna, make them pay back 4 times what they
Yeah.
stole. They didn't even take an improper biblical. They didn't even take an Islamic route of just cut their hand off. Right? They were like, no, we're cutting his whole life off for stealing something. Right? And so this is like that same type of Wild West feel that I'm sensing here. As David's like, hey, if anybody's alive in your family tomorrow morning, may God deal with me ever so severely.
Well, and who knows? I mean, there might have been a point in time where there was some sort of deal struck between them, because it sounds like David and his men are like an actual protection force for these people while they're in the fields tending these animals for a long extended period of time. So it's not saying it in the text, but maybe this man said, if you protect our, flocks while you're here, we'll feed you or whatever,
And that's why it seems to be so egregious that he's like, who's David?
Yeah.
Acting like all coy and everything. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off the donkey, fell face down, and bowed before him. So again, worshiping a ruler is not false idolatry, right? This is just showing respect to a ruler. So this is called worship. This is called obeisance, where you bow before a ruler. He fell at his feet and said, my Lord, may the blame be on me. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear the words of your servant. My Lord should pay no attention to this scoundrel Nabal, for he lives up to his name. His name means fool, and folly accompanies him. I, your servant, did not see my Lord's young men whom you sent. Now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, since the Lord has held you back from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand, may your enemies and those who seek harm for my Lord be like Nabal. Let this gift your servant has brought to you, my Lord, be given to the young men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense, for the Lord will surely make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because he fights the Lord's battles. May no evil be found in you as long as you live. And should someone pursue you and seek your life, then the life of my Lord will be bound securely by the Lord your God in the bundle of the living. But he shall fling away the lives of your enemies like stones from a sling. And when Yahweh has done for my Lord all the good he promised, and when he has appointed you ruler over Israel, then my Lord will have no remorse or guilt of conscience over needless bloodshed and revenge. And when Yahweh has dwelt with my Lord in the land, may you remember your servant. Then David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me this day. Blessed is your discernment, and blessed are you, because today you kept me from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand. Otherwise, as surely as Yahweh, the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, then surely no male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by morning light. Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, go home in peace. See, I've heeded your voice and granted your request. When Abigail returned to Nabal, there he was in the house, holding a feast fit for a king, in high spirits and very drunk. She told him nothing until morning light. And in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him about these events, and his heart failed within him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal dead. All right. On hearing that Nabal was dead, David said, blessed be the Lord, who has upheld my cause against the reproach of Nabal, and has restrained his servant from evil. For the Lord has brought the wickedness of Nabal down upon his own head. Then David sent word to Abigail, asking her to become his wife. She's back on the market, man. She's back on the market, and he's like, swoop.
No time.
Look,
for...
I already knew the story. I haven't forgotten the story, but as I'm reading this up here, this whole little, all these positive words that she's saying to David. Do you know how long it's been since anyone has said anything positive to David, much less a beautiful, intelligent woman? He is sitting here going, this woman right here, I guarantee you he put her in the back of his mind, like, if anything ever happens to Nabal, get me that woman. I need a woman to wake up to that's going to be positive in my life, and I love you because you're that type of woman to me.
Oh, thank you, baby. Maybe this is why Michal ends up hating David so much, because
she's not even in the picture right now. She's still apparently like back in the fortress.
She's off, but then they were married, right?
Right.
Yeah, so he's off and then comes back with another wife. So
yeah, but
that might have,
Look, all the men may know what I'm saying, but any woman that talks to you like this, you marry her immediately. That's the woman that's going to help you fulfill your calling in your life with God. whatever God's calling you to do. You need a woman who speaks to you like this, who thinks about you like this, who respects God enough to think about you like this. So this is, she definitely earned her second marriage. She definitely earned her second marriage. She earned her spot in the future kingdom, the future palace of David. So, let me see here.
Down.
All right. So on hearing that Nabal was dead, David said, "Blessed be the Lord who upheld my cause against the reproach of Nabal as restrained." Okay. Verse 40. When his servants came to Abigail at Carmel and said, David has sent us to take you as his wife. She arose, bowed face down, and said, "Here is your servant, ready to serve, to wash feet of my Lord's servants." That is an exuberant yes. Even the servants who showed up with the message, she's like, "I will wash your feet." Blessed are the feet who bring good news, right? So Abigail hurried and got on a donkey and attended. Now she traded up.
Yeah.
Straight up from a drunkard, mean man to a God-fearing future king who's a warrior. So she traded up for show. She arose, bowed face down. She's ready to wash the feet of these men. Verse 42. So Abigail hurried and got on a donkey and attended by 5 of her maidens. She followed. Do you think David took the maidens as his wives later too? Because he had a lot by the time it's over. So Abigail hurried and got on a donkey attended by 5 of her maidens. She followed David's messengers and became his wife. David also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, so she and Abigail were both his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Palti, son of Laish, who was from Galim.
Right. I forgot that Saul
he gets in the way.
Reassigned her like the Mormons.
Yeah.
To some other husband while David was
on the
running for his life. Ahinoam just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know, what's going on here. Again, more information I'd like to have.
Yeah, I guess he's taking care of the widow in that situation.
Well, she's definitely available. She's legal. She's legally back on the market. And the text goes out of its way to say she was intelligent and beautiful. So David is not missing the opportunities while he's on the run. He is staying true to his. On one hand, he's staying true to his dedication to Yahweh by not striking down Saul, who's anointed by Yahweh, and hasn't officially been removed from the position. So he's not going to go against the hierarchical instruction of Yahweh. And he's going out and fighting the Lord's battles to protect the innocents, where Saul's not. Saul's hunting down the innocents. And he's also taken that priest, and he's protecting him. And God's communicating directly with David and not Saul.
Yeah.
And so, like David at this point, he's like, "Hey, I think I earned a wife or two." I'm being silly.
Or 2 or 3.
But this is definitely like, TV show material for sure.
Oh, there is so much spice and intrigue in all of this. It's the fact that Hollywood doesn't make all of this into movies and shows is actually proof.
Yeah.
It's a further another proof that it's the truth and they don't want people to know it, because there's so much material throughout the whole book. I mean, we're just in one little section of the story right here, and this could be, a five seasons of a show just in this first Samuel alone. So it's just proof they don't want people knowing it. They don't want people reading it. They don't want direct attention to it.
Yeah, because like you've got the Saul obviously is the big bad, but then you've got dissension amongst his own ranks where his own military won't carry out his commands. But then you got this Doeg character, like he's going to have to be a sub boss. You have to take out later.
That's a whole storyline and it's on its own.
You've got the foreshadowing of Jonathan's death. You've got the friendship that's the misdirect, building up their friendship. And there's a lot here, guys. There's a lot here.
Complicated marriages going on. You got affairs.
You've got David encountering, like they could have said a whole episode about Nabal,
Yeah.
about him in his own elements,
Yes.
being cruel and harsh with people, and being taking advantage of people, and
Yeah.
neglecting his beautiful, innocent, God-fearing wife.
Yeah.
And then she gets justification for him dying at the hand of God, not at the hand of an adulterer. And then she can then freely go and marry David. And then it's going to take a turn when Bathsheba shows up.
It's also
Going to take a big turn.
If you think about the fact that Hollywood also, with as much as they love money, Bible content is one of the most desired forms of content in this world. There are 2 billion Christians in this world. The Bible itself is the best-selling book of all time, continuously, always. That's why they don't even put it on the top bestseller list at all, because it is always the bestseller. Mm-hmm. So the money that could be made on quality biblical movies and television shows, and they just pass up on all of that. They're like, nope, we don't want the extra billions of dollars. No. Like that's pretty strong hatred of God's word to not even use it for your advantage to make money off of it.
Yep.
I am going to take a bathroom break while you start questions.
All right, guys. We'll take some questions if you have any. Hopefully everyone's doing well today. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't like, not a lot of people. There is a segment of people that don't like The Chosen. But guys, it's heads and tails better than what Hollywood's producing. Yes, they've taken artistic liberties just like everyone always does every time they portray any biblical movie. But yeah, they're not turning Jesus gay. How about that? I mean, that's how low the bar is with Hollywood. They got Jesus Christ Superstar. They got The Last Temptation with that one dude. The point is, like, if I pray that groups like the Chosen and that whole concept, I pray they can be successful to continue to start making other types of biblical related content that gets the truth of it out there with any sense of sticking to the script of the scriptures, not changing the storyline, not woken it up, not doing gender swaps and sexuality swaps and all that kind of nonsense, but just they may take some liberties because there's some information missing as far as a screenplay, and you got to kind of blend in some information. I know that we watched that season 1 of that David show on Netflix, and as we're reading through some of the source material that they pulled from that show, I can see that they took some liberties there as far as like when David, the timeline of David and Michael as well, the love interest. And so I understand that people will be upset with them taking that kind of liberty. I get it. But I don't know what to think specifically about that particular group that produced the David series. I think they're trying to ride the coattails of the success of the Chosen series. So, but at some point, like, the medium is there, right? The concept of filmmaking is there. And I pray that strong Christian men are able to rise up and create solid biblical content that people can actually be encouraged by and get a good portrayal into the scriptures and cause interest for them to read it for themselves. I mean, that's the whole idea. We don't want these things to replace the scriptures, right? We just want the entertainment to get you interested in the lives of people like David and Jonathan and Samuel and that kind of stuff, right? So they can go read the Bible for themselves. Carmela's asking about the game. The game is ready. We're just waiting on final details for approval for publishing. So it's just, I apologize. It's taking Like,
Isn't Apple like super complicated in terms of getting apps
Yeah.
in their store? It's kind of silly. If you wanted to answer that, that's a picture we could use.
what are you saying? I mean, okay, let me take a look at this.
I'm just saying I have an answer for that question if you want to answer it, but you haven't clicked on it, so I don't know if you want to answer it or not.
All right. Sig is asking, how do you personally discern the wheat from the tares? MSM, social media, people, pastors, etc. Mainstream media, social media, people, pastors. I'm guessing you're saying within those categories, how do I discern the wheat from the tares? Because I'm guessing you're saying, in your opinion, 90% fit this category. So the first thing I want to say, brother, just we've been saying this for years. I don't know how long you've been watching us, but we highly encourage people not to step in the place of Christ, right? We do not get to call judgment over other people's souls, right? This is why even the master lets them grow to the end, and then they'll separate them at the judgment. So all judgment is given to Christ, not us. It's not good for our hearts to walk around just assuming this person's not saved and this person, even though they profess Christ, to me, will be known by our fruits. I think this is a very simple biblical concept that is, Christ references that as love. His disciples will be known by his love. So let's look at the disciples of Christ in his own life before he ascended to heaven. They were instructed by Christ to go out and abide in the commandments of God with love, but at the same time, they had their own faults still. They were still discipling, right? They weren't perfect. They still had problems and issues, Peter cut a dude's ear off. Like he started swinging wild-like, right? Out of fear and out of his own immaturity of faith, right? Christ had to clean up, so to speak, the situation that Peter caused by healing that guy's ear. That's kind of a big deal. This shows you the immaturity of Peter, who was a disciple and accepted by Christ at the time, right? So some people could look at Peter and say, well, that's not a Christian.
He denied the Lord 3 times after his death.
So again, this is where we strongly caution people against sitting in the judgment seat of Christ and just assuming, because you're seeing that some person's life or their statement or their video they made and put on social media at one point in their life, at one point in time in their life, and that you're seeing that you think they don't uphold the standard that you would judge them by. We're just not Christ. We're not given that opportunity to do that. And this is actually against Romans 14:4. We are not to judge the servants of our master. So it's his job to judge us. I discern that because the disciples of Christ are known by their love and by their fruit. So they're going to exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit, as we see from Galatians, should be flowing out of them. I'll just read a little bit from that real quick.
If you just look up pictures of wheat and tares, you'll see all kinds of memes that have been put together to show that wheat and tares look identical. And that's why Yeshua uses this to illustrate people in his parable, because ultimately he's saying at a certain point, you're not going to know who's wheat and who's tares because they look identical. And he says that they're told to allow the wheat and the tares to grow together, and then his reapers will come and his angels will come and they will put the sickle out, and gather up all the tares and the wheat themselves and separate them. So in terms of your own personal walk, definitely use your discernment if there is bad teaching going on, if there's bad fruit happening. There are certainly some mega pastors out there that we could all look at and be like, yeah, I don't know about that guy. I'm not going to sit under his teachings. So God can say if he's going to get in the kingdom or not. It's up to God to decide if that guy's really a tare or if he's a true Christian or if he's just deceived or not, whatever. I'm not going to sit under his teaching. So that's how I would encourage you on a personal level to discern wheat from tares. As far as what kind of doctrine you're going to follow, absolutely pay attention to the fruit and the teaching coming out of people. But if we're going to be walking around saying, therefore, that guy's teaching is bad, therefore he's not a true believer, that's something Sean and I don't do.
Yeah, he still may be on the milk stage of his discipleship process, right? And God can drastically change his heart later. I mean, we see, what's that guy's name? Joel Osteen, his brother-in-law is now a Torah observant teacher.
Yeah, one of Benny Hinn's nephews is, actually trying to expose the teachings of Benny Hinn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that.
I'm trying to give this example specifically to the majority of our audience. Okay. So if you guys aren't aware, I think the name of the it's like Truth and Passion Ministries or something like that.
Truth and Triumph, I think.
Truth and Triumph Ministries. But he was formerly a part of Joel Osteen's mega church operation, mainstream Christianity. And he realized, the fullness of the commandments are applicable to us. He left. He had disagreements with Joel, and he left, and he went off, started his own fellowship where he's Torah observant now. So, look, this is why even if you think the tares look the same as the wheat, because that's the point of the analogy, it doesn't change how we're instructed to love people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue here. Whether you think someone's a tare or not, that just means you still need to love them.
Yeah, like what's the point of your question? Are you asking that so you can go out and expose the tares? What's the, if you knew the answer to the question, if it gave you a solid answer for yourself, like what are you going to do with the information? You're going to go out and talk about the tares everywhere?
So the point is, whether someone is an unbeliever, whether someone is a confused believer, whether someone is a wolf in sheep's clothing that hasn't been exposed yet, or whether they're genuinely righteous and following God's ways, all four categories, we're called to love them regardless. We're not called to treat them differently. We're called to love them, right? Now, specifically, the wolf in sheep's clothing, like she was saying, when it comes to teaching doctrine, that's where there's some guardrails set up in Scripture as far as warning the divisive man, looking at the doctrine and that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that you don't stop loving them, right? There's a difference here as far as guarding the teaching that's coming to you and your family versus how you treat, in the same way you wouldn't let an unbeliever stand up and teach at your congregation, right? You would put those same guardrails up. But that doesn't mean you stop loving the unbeliever and praying for them to come to the truth. You know what I'm saying? So, because this is the fruit of the Spirit, right? That we exercise all these things. These are the concepts that we have to walk in when we see the world around us being extremely confused. That's our call. So Deidre Lynch is asking, the temple that David got the bread from, was it at Nob? Was there several temples at that time? Now, remember, this was before the standing temple that was attributed to Solomon. And this was still when they had the traveling tabernacle. So they could pick it up and move it as why? Why would they pick it up and move it? When they were instructed to build the traveling tabernacle in Exodus, why would they ever disassemble it, pick it up and move it, and reassemble it?
Are you asking me or are you asking the audience?
Anybody that wants to answer. A little deep.
Because they were traveling in the wilderness.
Okay. So what prompted them to move from one place to another in the wilderness?
I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Anyone in the live chat? When they were given the instructions for the traveling tabernacle, Exodus 25 through 28, Exodus 35 through 40, what prompted them to disassemble it, clean it, take it to another location, and reassemble it? Anyone in the live chat? There it is. Good job, Bruno. They were following the angel of the presence.
Oh, so that was still happening at this time in the land.
When did it ever leave?
Okay.
This is what we were talking about last time. Remember in Judges chapter 2, the angel of the presence shows up and says to the people, you guys have not followed the ways of Yahweh. You've gone astray, but God's not going to break covenant with you. He'll still be faithful to you. It's the angel of the presence.
Yeah.
Like he shows up to speak to them like he always did, right? Through a priest, through the prophets that were available. Like it's the same scenario, the same prescription for, hey, by the way, I'm giving you this traveling tabernacle. So what happens when they build the standing tabernacle? What happens in 1 Kings chapter 8 when Solomon ordains the standing tabernacle? What do you remember where it says?
You think I remember 1 Kings chapter 8?
The glory of the Lord drops down in the temple and it pushes all the priests out because it's so bright.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the last time I read.
The angel ordains the temple in Leviticus 9 and 1 Kings 8, both. Whether the traveling tabernacle or the permanent standing temple. The angel's been with them this whole time, guys. We talk about this. I've talked about this in times past. It's been a while since we've done Torah portions, but the angel's still there everywhere, all over the place. Like he's still there to guard and guide Israel.
Yeah.
Who is the angel of the Lord? When David sins and takes a census, he pulls his sword out and starts wiping it over the city of Jerusalem that causes, the people to die for over a 3-day period. It's the angel of the Lord, the one who will not pardon your sins, the one you should not disrespect, the one in whom the Father's authority is in him, right? So it's the same one that's been assigned to go with them. We've talked about this in the past about, how do you ordain new priests? How do you, who's anointing this temple every time it moves from Gilgal to Mitzvah to any other place, right?
Did it travel with Samuel as he went around judging?
This is what we talked about like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and when we were reviewing the first few chapters of 1 Samuel. I was saying these are the 3 places Samuel went to go judge. I think it's in chapter 7 of 1 Samuel, the circuit that he went. And I was like, why would he have a different going circle? Oh, because they were moving the tabernacle, as we read in other places. They moved the tabernacle to different places. And we don't know why, but if we're going off the precedent from earlier in the scriptures, they would move the tabernacle whenever the angel would move.
Yeah.
So does anyone have a verse where the angel disappeared? Anyone think of a verse where the angel disappeared after Deuteronomy? Hey, morally grounded, brother. Thank you so much for your generosity, man.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, that's a blessing, man. Thank you so much. It's very generous.
Yeah, because my first thought would have been that they were moving the tabernacle because there were actual Levite cities. And what are the Levites doing for work if they're not?
Well, they would go according to their assignment. They would travel to where the tabernacle is. The same way they have to do with Jerusalem.
Right, but didn't they had cities specifically for them.
They had like 35 cities.
Yeah.
But it's only mentioned that this tabernacles move around at 3 or 4 places. Anyone in the live chat, can you tell me the verse where the angel of the presence left them? The same one that was to go with them, to lead them and guide them, to protect them. Can you tell me the verse where it left them? Because I sure haven't seen it.
You want to look that up?
I don't know if he's talking to me or not.
Okay.
Bruno, are you talking to me? Bruno, are you talking to me?
Any conversation?
Well, there's a lot of conversation in the live chat.
No, I mean, I haven't seen any conversation that he'd be answering with that too.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It's not the same. I don't think he's talking. I don't think he's answering us. It's not the same context. Now you're talking about this. Rebecca, when did the glory of the Lord depart from the tabernacle?
Well, obviously it had to be gone at some point.
It is. Yeah, you're right.
Because by the time Jesus is there,
that's right.
It's like they're just, unfortunately, the priesthood was like stolen at that point.
D Gib, I don't know if I'm saying this right. D Gib 4371. It's in Ezekiel.
So it is in there?
In Ezekiel, in the days of Ezekiel.
Okay.
He sees the angel of the glory of the Lord departing from the temple in the days of Ezekiel before they go into exile in Babylon.
Okay.
Ezekiel chapter 9 or 10. So from the days of Moses to Ezekiel's like the last wave of the invading of Nebuchadnezzar.
They're the last ones holding on. Okay.
Yeah. Angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord's there, guys, the whole time. The whole time. We talked about this a few years ago in several videos, and even I think it was like 2022, some of our Torah portions, even back then, I don't think anybody got it. I don't think anyone truly absorbed what I've been trying to tell you guys. The angel, like the ancient world, the concept of them and Israel having an familiarity and interaction with angels, commonplace. This is why it's so egregious when they would go and do these things, and like God strikes them down. To whom much is given, much is expected. They had the angel of the Lord showing up at all times, anointing, guarding over the priesthood, being there. Like this was a big deal. It was a part of them, this angel being assigned to Israel. It was a big deal. It was a living presence of God at the temple, hovering over the tent of meeting, over the tabernacle, over the holy place. As an example of, even though the Holy of Holies is empty, there's an angel of the presence that is the represents the presence of God, hence the classification of the angel that was always there. This is why it's such an egregious thing for them to turn to Baal and Molech and Ashtaroth and worship false gods, because they literally had something to look at, so to speak. It wasn't just an empty building. They had something to look at. They had supernatural demonstrations of God's power hanging out. They just had to go to the location to where the priesthood and the tabernacle was.
There he goes.
What's that? Oh, did he wake up? Did I talk too loud?
Surprised he slept through that hail and thunder.
Yeah, so David, this is what we talk about, why Christ even says, prophets and kings long to see what you guys have seen, but do not see it. But more blessed are those who believe and do not see. Because the generation that grows up without all the supernatural signs and wonders, without an angel of the presence hanging out above the temple where you're going for all the feast days, or you're supposed to be going, without a live demonstration of the natural engaging with the supernatural on a regular basis, and for us in this generation to be able to still have, through the deposit of the Spirit, through the gifting of faith, this is why God honors us in ways that's so unique, because it's like, whoa, we don't have all these visual signs to increase our faith, but yet here we are giving our life for Christ. This is why the church is such a big deal. The parameters are different, right? The church is scattered. The high priest is no longer at some location on the ground. He's in temple in heaven above. This is Christ, our high priest and king. And he is the firstborn of the church. He's over the church. He's over us, guiding and leading us. But it's a totally different environment in the sense that we don't have a physical location to go to see visual representations of the glory and the power of God. It happens through gifts of the Spirit as we're dispersed amongst the nations. He's using the light within us to infect the nations. That's why he tells at his Matthew 28:19, he tells the disciples, go to the nations and make disciples of the nations. Stop centralizing. That time period is over. Now, take it all out to the people. They all need it. Because in the centuries that I brought you in the land to centralize you, time after time after time, it got squandered. Even though he had live demonstrations through prophets and miracles and angels and all types of events of God showing his provision, love, and care and healing supernaturally for you. And even regardless of all that, they still turned away from him to follow false gods, false line signs, and wonders. So it was God's, hey, what's up, big boy? God dispersing the Israelites is justified. They spit in the face of a God who showed himself to them in a variety of ways that many of us never see today. No, we don't teach that the angel of the Lord was the Messiah, because Hebrews 1:1 is very clear. God spoke to the prophets in many portions, many ways, but in these last days he spoke to his son. So they would actually speak. The angel of the Lord would show up and give messages to the prophets and give visitations. I mean, we see it all throughout the scriptures. Judges chapter 2 is one of the examples I just gave earlier, where the angel of the Lord is speaking to the people. And so that's not a pre-incarnate Christ. Christ was destined to come. Christ is not an angel. Christ is the Son of the Almighty, and a very different designation, if you will. And also the book of Jubilees directly tells us that this angel of the Lord, this angel of the presence, is Michael, who's assigned to Israel, which is what the book of Daniel affirms, that Michael is called the Prince of Israel. Yeah. Yeah, the angel of the presence at one point, he just had to bounce because God said, yeah, you don't have to hang out there anymore. I'm dispersing these people and I'm destroying this temple, and all the artifacts are going to get scattered, some of them hid. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense of, there's a lot of places in some of these middle books, they talk about fire coming out from the Lord and devouring people, like for their sin.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
If there's a big old angel, because they have that consuming fire / not, like the fire can consume and cannot consume, like when it was in the bush, but other times it will consume. So that makes sense.
Okay. Chris is asking, the way Numbers 11:29 is worded, it makes it sound as though we're all prophets. Am I reading this right? Let's check it out, Chris. Numbers 11:29. Joshua son Nun, attendant Moses since youth, spoke up and said, Moses, my Lord, stop them. Moses replied, are you jealous on my account? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would place his spirit on them. No. He's definitely wishing for all of them to be obedient. This is in the midst of disobedience, as we, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They're just struggling to be obedient. Like, I don't think that it's not. There would be no role of prophets if everybody was immediately a prophet. In fact, so let's go here to in the New Testament, even in the book of Acts, chapter 13, and verse 1. It says, now in the church in Antioch, there were prophets and teachers. So there's still a designation amongst the believers. Some are just regular believers, some are prophets, and then some are teachers. And it says Barnabas, Simon, Lucius, Manaen, and Saul. And while they were worshiping, the Holy Spirit said, set apart Barnabas and Saul for the work, which I've called them. So, in fact, I think if you go back to Acts 5, maybe. Acts 6. Yeah, so right here, it says some of the 12 summoned all the disciples and said, it's unacceptable to us to neglect the word of God in order to wait on tables. Therefore, brothers, select from among you 7 men confirmed to be full of spirit and wisdom. We will assign this responsibility to them and will devote ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. This proposal pleased the whole group. They chose Stephen, a man full of faith of the Holy Spirit, as well as Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, Nicholas, and Nicholas. They presented these 7 to the apostles, who prayed and laid their hands on them. And so the concept is that these guys they're set aside for special type of ministry, specifically teaching, ministering the word. So it makes sense that you've got in Acts chapter 13 both prophets and teachers being designated amongst the groups of disciples post resurrection of Christ. So yeah, Moses' general wish was that all the people will be obedient to the point of being a prophet. You had to be extremely obedient to be considered a prophet of God, that he would trust you to be an ambassador for him, to be a message, right? Now, we're told to be that obedient, and we're told that we are ambassadors for Christ, and that we should not profane God's name by dishonoring it through our lifestyle. But even within that context of the New Testament, we see that they did have specific men called prophets. So not everybody was just randomly now considered a prophet. because there's a great weight and responsibility for a prophet. So anyway, hopefully that's a decent answer for you. Rebecca, you're asking about the angel of the Garden of Eden. If you could just elaborate a little bit on your question, help me to what are you asking about that angel? What specifically? Could you just maybe just add a little bit more detail to your question? Bruno's asking about a disease. Disease that can cause someone to see faces as demonic is called prosopometamorphosophia. I didn't say prosopo metamorphosophia. Yeah, I've never heard of that, and I don't think that there's. I mean, it sounds like you're possessed, to be honest. Not you, Bruno, but I'm like, if you're dealing with seeing everyone's faces as demonic, you may have your own internal issues going on as far as being possessed and having illusions put in front of your face by demons, because not everybody is a demon, clearly.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a sense of delusion within your mind.
Yeah.
Seeing things that aren't real. So, but no, I've never heard of that specifically.
Yeah. Could be spiritual. Could be tied to strange trauma and abuse from childhood, which probably has all its own spiritual implications.
Carmela is asking about, did the priests that live in other cities do sacrifices in those cities? Did they teach, resolve disputes? What was their role in their cities? To my understanding, there, as far as the, for one, let me just, you got a couple questions here. So let me just see if I can break it down real quick. The priests in other cities, they definitely taught. They definitely resolved disputes. They're considered judges and elders and leaders. Okay. So they would handle locally within that city. They also had to maintain the judgment of the manslayer who may have fled to their city as refuge, if they were in a city of refuge. So yes, they had to be able to defend, teach, uphold a sense of justice and judgment, and more than likely hear cases to settle disputes. Did they do sacrifices? That I'm not sure of. It seems as if once they had a collective tent of meeting and an organization, that they only did sacrifices for Yahweh at the tent of meeting, at the traveling tabernacle, which is why they had some sort of rotation to where they would then, in their rotation, go to the temple during their appointed time and then go back home. So that would keep all the men of priestly age that were to be in a part of the priesthood, that would keep them trained on a regular basis through a rotating schedule. But some of that is not in scripture. Some of that you actually get from additional writings found in the Dead Sea Scrolls about the priestly courses and their particular scheduling that they had, at least as they understood it in the first century. So again, it's hard to pin some of this stuff down because it's just not given to us in the canon.
I would certainly think they were involved in resolving disputes.
Yeah, I did address that.
I would think that. I'm just saying, like, as far as one thing we could most likely be sure of, like, yeah, they would be resolving disputes at the very least.
Okay, lost but found. Yahweh did not create the Nephilim. The Nephilim are the result of the rebellious watchers taking wives and then having this unholy offspring. That was the result. So it's not that this is why it was such an egregious sin. The angels that were responsible for this are locked away in Tartarus, not getting out to the day of judgment, as First Peter and Jude talks about. So
their question above that was who creates life. I think their point is probably coming from a place of confusion about the fact that who does create life in the womb of a woman.
Yeah, Yahweh knits us together in our womb, but he did not knit the Nephilim together in their womb. Yeah, because they were created by the unclean watchers, the unholy, the rebellious watchers. This is what First Enoch and Jubilees talk about in great detail. So this is where in my opinion, this is why they're given the Hebrew word Nephal, which is where we get the word Nephilim. It means they're fallen. Like there is no redeemable trait. They're done. They're damned. They're fallen from birth, from creation, from their creation, because they were created in order to destroy, as First Enoch 15 talks about. They were not created in the same sense that mankind was created by Yahweh. If that makes any sense.
I would say it's just an example of another way that the fallen angels and then humans with them abuse the Father's creation, because obviously it's in their DNA that somehow they could procreate, but that was an abuse of their DNA. That was an abuse of the breath of life that Yahweh gave them. It wasn't ordained by the Father. So just like, we all know that there's a lot of things that go on with pregnancies and satanic cults, that kind of question can be brought up in situations like that as well. But those are also situations of people abusing the gift of being able to procreate.
Okay, so let's think about it like this, because the general concept, the general argument is that the average person may say, I thought only God could give the breath of life to something in the womb,
right,
to create it, right? Does God do that with every single lion that's born, every single giraffe that's born, every
organism that procreates,
every single insect that reproduces, like every mosquito, everything that shows any form of conscious thought, like a beaver, right? It shows active planning and conscious thought to create its home for its people, because it's designed within it to do that. But do we consider a beaver on the same par with a human? As someone that's made in the image and likeness of God? Beavers can procreate, humans can procreate, angels can procreate, but the thing that they procreated was never intended, as spoken in the book of First Enoch, was considered a thing of uncleanness immediately once it's born, as explained in the book of First Enoch, and is destined for destruction, and is not ever even offered the opportunity for redemption. A lot of people don't want to hear me say this, but if we're talking about comparing classifications of species, animals are not offered redemption either.
Right.
It's not the same. It's talking apples and oranges here. The Nephilim, yes, they were giants of old, before the flood, but they probably look like men, and I'm guessing a lot of them were chimeric as well. Maybe didn't look entirely like men, but the point is, they were not created with the promises of man, with the gift of God to be made in the image and likeness of man. That's why we're special. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm assuming from the multitude of question marks in your last comment about the angels creating life. No, the angels procreated.
Right.
The angels didn't create life. We didn't create life when we had Levi. We procreated, and Levi was a product of the DNA that the Father programmed our bodies with to procreate. Levi is the product of that DNA that the Father gave us and that process that he gave us for procreation. So the Nephilim are the product of the angels procreating with women. Clearly their DNA was created in some sort of way that was possible. So no, the angels didn't create life any more than Sean and I created life when we conceived Levi.
Right.
So
you want to come say hi?
We run out of time.
We are.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. You can come say hi and bye.
Deidre, to my understanding, the tithes and offerings would have been brought to the main temple, where there was a distribution for the poor, the widows, the lonely, the orphans, that kind of thing. So that it wouldn't have been the local. I don't know what it looked like in the cities of the Levites. The cities of the Levites are not just, they're not temples. They're cities, right? So they had houses, they had land. This is I don't see anything in scripture saying that they built many temples there. The concept of the synagogue seems to be a later concept arising around the 3rd century BC. And so I don't the concept of the yearly or the tithe every 3 years, and then the first fruits that you bring forward via one of the feasts every year, depending on what type of harvest you had. that would have been brought forward to Yahweh and to be received by the priest at the gates of the temple where Yahweh's authority was, which would have been his actual temple. So hopefully that's a decent answer for you. Now, those items, that value, that resource could be distributed to the different cities and through the Levites in the different areas of the land. That would make sense. But as far as it being seen and accepted by Yahweh, they would have to bring it to his actual house. Which is why you have in Deuteronomy 14, it says if you live too far away and it's too much of a burden to bring those animals to the house, you can just exchange it for money, bring the money, and then that money will be your tithe that you use at the feast. Okay, guys, we're running out of time. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you so much for your generosity, guys, your donations. If you like what we do, we're not priests, but if you want to help us and you want to donate to what we're doing, they're in the links below. We appreciate everyone that already supports us. You guys are a huge blessing. Thank you so much.
Ken and Jess are doing very well, and everything's on track with the pregnancy.
Yeah, they're about to have a baby.
Pray for a healthy delivery with no complications. I did want to mention for the person asking about tassels, just look up on YouTube seats and like how to make your own seats. There's a modern tradition that most of us follow where I wear 2, but some people wear 4 of these traditional tassels on their belt loops, or I wear them on the hem of my shirts or my dresses, depending on the length. Sean and I, though, believe that the original command was referring to the 4 openings of your garment because there is no 4 corners on a garment. And if you look up, there's a lot of Native American garments that you can see in museums and things that had fringe. It was like actual fringes on the neck, the arms, and the bottoms of their shirts. So that's what Sean and I think the command was truly describing. Although most of us have so many, we don't just have like 3 robes that we rotate like they did back then. So for most of us, it would be kind of hard to have tassels on every opening like that. So most of us honor that command by doing the modern tradition of seat. So you can look those up online. I thought that was a good question, so I wanted to answer that.
Okay.
All right. So check the link in the description. There's a widow that's in need. And other than that, we just love you guys and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Say bye-bye.
Say bye-bye.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.